You're welcome. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu had on Sunday, on the occasion of Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, spoke to the nation quite passionately and reeled out some of his decisions and policy directions. Tinubu, who had sworn in or was sworn in as Nigeria's president only in May, has had a mixed start, somewhat, you would call it, to life in Nigeria's biggest political office. Some of his policy moves have been criticized, while others have been hailed for their motive and intention. The Nigerian president, in his speech, touched on a number of issues. He also announced some measures for the Nigerian economy, including an increase of 25,000 naira for 83% of the current minimum wage as an addition to the salaries of workers on the federal wage bill. The move, the Nigerian Labour, however, claims was made without its consultation, prompting a demand by Labour for that amount to be increased. The president subsequently did that, increasing it to 35,000 naira after being consulted by his chief of staff via a phone call. With both parties still locked in talks and a strike action, looking the country in the eyes, attention has been turned to the labor movement in Nigeria and the federal government as their ongoing talks continue. Tonight we discuss the burning issues affecting Nigeria, analyzing the president's speech and the offers he's made, the palliative measures he's announced to celebrate Nigeria at 63. Tonight, we're joined by a political analyst with us right here in the studio, Dr. Dokun Adedeji. And of course, via Zoom, we have another political analyst, Dr. Ademola Bayonle. Gentlemen, welcome to Politics HQ.
Thank you very much.
All right. Let me start with you, Dr. Adedeji. President Tinubu's speech, he used the occasion to recall his famous or infamous statement on the 29th of May where he said subsidy is gone. His announcement ending the subsidy on petrol in the country. In his speech, he encouraged Nigerians to, I quote, endure this trying moment, saying, quote, those who sought to perpetuate the fuel subsidy and the broken foreign exchange policies are the people who build their family mansion in the middle of a swamp. I am different. I am not a man to erect a national home on a foundation of mud, he said. He continued by saying, quote, to endure, our home must be structured on safe and pleasant ground. The president said, quote, reform may be painful, but it is what greatness and the future require. Dr. Adedeji, do you see this decision, like the president is saying, as a tough decision that had to be made to save the Nigerian economy from total collapse?
Quite honestly, the decision is well accepted. It's a long sought decision. But my challenge with this statement that you read out is the fact that if you tell us the people to endure, which I quite understand, Nigerians are willing to endure if they truly see an end to it. But as Nigerians are enduring, we are not seeing the same enduring posture in the top people, particularly in the National Assembly or maybe even in government. Let me start with this. The president has a cabinet of close to 50 ministers. Tell me about how to reduce cost of governance. We know before the legislators went on their holiday or whatever, there was little prayer in their box, which amounted to some money. Does that mean they too don't know how to endure? It's only Nigerians that should endure. Look, honestly, I think many of our leaders take us for a ride, knowing that Nigerians, like, we don't have a choice, we will do what they want us to do. But I think it's beginning to get clear that Nigerians are tired of being played around like football. Honestly, if they also show the same tendency towards endurance, Nigerians are willing to work with them. We know that I hear that some of the vehicles are being bought close to 300 million naira. Is that cost of change? Is that endurance? In a nation where people cannot feed, a bag of rice is about 55,000 naira. Even with the money that the president has added, it doesn't buy a bag of rice. So even if you buy a bag of rice, you're not going to eat any other thing. Are you not going to send your kid to school? Are you not going to go to hospital or whatever, pay your other bills? Look, let's get serious in this country. As much as I personally personally accept those kind of changes, which is just long sought after or long overdue. We need to get serious about showing that we're serious with the kind of decision we take. It's not just, I like what you said about intent. And we intend to make things better, but we are not seeing it. It is better to see it by examples and precepts of those people who lead us. That's my view.
All right. Dr. Bayonle, your take?
Well, I totally agree with Dr. Adedeji's line of thought. But I just also want to say that if we are saying that there are people who build their houses on swamps, why is it difficult for us to identify them and actually question these people so that we can actually get to the root cause of the problem that we are dealing with? That is very important so that we can also chart a way forward. But if these cabals, these people building houses on swamps, they are nameless, they are faceless. At this point, we're just trying to use policies and what have you to go around them. It means that we're actually not taking the bull by the horn. It means that we're just trying to fan the flame and expect us to extinguish the fire. That's one part of it. The second part of it is that I do not see a suffering that should not, if you are intentional about a renewal hope, I think it should be time bound. We should be able to say that between May and June, or between June and December, we should have measured qualities that we can measurable successes in some of the things that we have been promised. I do not think that we have measurable successes that we can point to. Yes, we have said that they are going to buy stuff, etc. But I think by now, you cannot also tell me the 5 billion is part of the measurable success. You cannot take away subsidy and start sharing rice. It does not make any sense. So it looks like we're in a road trip and we are not going, it doesn't seem there's a way out of this quagmire that we are in. That's my take on that.
All right. The president outlined in his speech, he emphasized on the need for economic reforms, shared prosperity. What steps, Dr. Adedeji, need to be taken, or would you recommend to ensure that wealth is distributed by or among all Nigerians? Because the president talked about shared prosperity. What do you think he meant by that?
Some of this seems to me like more semantics, and then just play of words, and then everybody will be satisfied. To take away from what, to get on from what Dr. Bayonle said, if we're looking at share prosperity, is it by giving me rice that I want to say share prosperity? Is it by giving me tokenist attitude to it and sharing little things and I call them palliative? Look, honestly, that's also the same reason why I have problem with labor. You see, labor forget that Nigerian population of people who work is less about 20, 25, 30, maximum 30,000. So what happens to the 70,000 that don't work for government or work for state or work for local government? What benefits them? So I think if you want to, government should probably do things in the side of health, education, and amenities. Because this is the money, even if you increase people's money, those are the things they will spend the money on. So why don't you make those things available so that when somebody gets a salary, even if it's 10,000, he knows that the 10,000 is basically for house needs, domestic needs, and all the rest. People pay through their noses to go to school, to send their kids to go to hospital or something, and then we're saying shared prosperity. What kind of shared prosperity is it that allows a senator to have as many aides as he wants? A governor chose about 47 people to manage his social wealth and social media.
Yeah, but Doc, right. That aside, with a fundamental question or issue of it's time to go make some hard decisions for the Nigerian economy. Let's keep the National Assembly members aside and the cost of their cars, which is important. Like you said, you need to also show what you're talking about. But the fundamental issue or idea of taking the painful pill, that painful pill to win ourselves or to cure ourselves of the malaria. The paracetamol is or is bitter, but you have to take it to get well, you know. Do you think that it's necessary? Nigerians need to buy into that?
No, look, honestly, as I said in my opening, Nigerians want to buy into it if they see a reason to buy into it. If you tell me to swallow poison, I want to see you also take part of it. If this thing, you said shared prosperity, where's the shared prosperity? Except distributed difficulties and suffering.
But the reason to buy into it, the president said, right, was that the economy would have been built on a muddy foundation. You know, that would have been built on a muddy foundation. And we have to take these painful measures and sacrifice so that we can have a brighter future.
Look, Kofi, let me be honest with you. Let us be careful with buying into semantics. The thing is, he said people have been built on that. The people who are involved in the exchange, currency exchange, that the people involved in. Who are they? Are they ghosts? Are they aliens? Are they not Nigerians? Those people who still live large and free, and then they spend the money they have made and all that, and then you are telling me to suffer for the things that people are still enjoying right in the very before. Look, as I said to you, everybody wants to, but let us see that it is shared suffering, it is shared prosperity. You think if they do all those things, it doesn't pay people, that then it makes it better for us. But you can't show me those things. As again, Dr. Bayonle said, what are the yardsticks to measure that we are getting results with the things we're doing? There are none. If you say, okay, give money to 6 months, what happens after 6 months? If you give me 10 naira today, you want to take it back after 6 months? I mean, so how do you want to do it? You see, some of this that I see is just like government on the go. Oh, people complain, oh, 25,000 is small. Oh, by phone, you then say change it to 35. What is the thought process behind it? How did we arrive at those figures? And how do we want to share the money we want to share? You see, the thing is, it's nice to want to encourage me to bite the bullet, but I don't see equal biting of the bullet. And so it's difficult for me to bite the bullet. Even if I want to bite, if I'm willing to, show me why I should be willing. It's like somebody lead me into war, and then you know this is a good general. If he tells me to go and kill myself, I will follow him to the end. But in this case, I'm asking myself, which war am I going to? So that's the way I look at it.
But it's probably a case of whether you like it or not. If you don't buy the bullets, chances are that you're going to be hit by something greater in a not too distant. So you just have to do it.
No, Kofi, I agree with you. But let me tell you where I'm coming from. Do you know if you drive on the street of Lagos in a delicate area, because you are driving a car, that makes you a victim, an object. And so what kind of life do I live to after suffering and worked so hard and then wanting to buy the bullet, and the boys that are evil, because the man that is down has no fear to fall. And then they see me, they beat me up. Because they think I'm driving a car, I must belong to them.
But it happens more in New York City than in Lagos.
Oh, don't tell me that. It depends on where you go to in Lagos. It depends on where you go to.
Okay, let me bring in Bayonle, Ademola Bayonle. Ademola, I mean, the top three, presidential candidates, by the results, all said they were going to remove end the subsidy on petrol. Do you think people are being unfair in their criticism of Bola Tinubu's measure? I mean, they all said they were going to do it, so why are people finding it hard to accept that Bola Tinubu has done it?
Well, I think we've sailed that conversation, and we should actually quickly move past it. Uneasy wears the head that wears the crown. The people have spoken, INEC has spoken, now you're the president. It does not matter what other candidates may have said at this point. If they have better opinions, maybe they should bring it forward. But I think it was not well planned. Clearly, looking at how people are feeling from the full subsidy issue. And let me say this, I think that the government, they've successfully created a pet project for all of us, and that is the subsidy. I think that this government is going to take us around fuel subsidy issues for the next 4 years. We had problems coming into this administration, and I think that even comparing what they said in May 29, or subsequent broadcasts that we've had, compared to this one, we've seen that the fuel subsidy and the palliation has taken over completely what we should the progress that we should be experiencing. So the other candidates could have said different things as far as we are concerned, but right now we have one government in place. And the government, I think they have succeeded in taking the wrong foot forward. And there are examples to that. The president should not make a broadcast yesterday, and 4 hours later, things are changing really quickly. From saying that there's low-income rich people or whatever to Bayonle coming to change that just a few hours later. From also telling us that the consultation for the 25,000 was in alliance with the TUC and the NLC, but clearly they were not carried along in that process. It seems that there's something going on with this government that I don't know. I hope that it doesn't take us long to understand. There's also been a lot of broadcasts. Look at the UAE visa ban that they put out, and they said that they have cleaned up. And subsequent later, we're hearing that it was actually not the case. Look at the student loan projects. There's just so many pockets of unfulfilled, just promise, a lot of bogus promises that we are not feeling in the grassroots. Right. So I think we should quickly move into governance and leave politics out of it. Let the Supreme Court and the appeal courts take care of politics. Now talking about governance, people are feeling really the brunt of what's going on in the grassroots. So that's I think what I'll say about.
All right, you're in Boston, the United States of America. I'm tempted to ask if you guys over there in the United States, in Massachusetts and other parts of the United States are feeling the pinch of the rise in the price of gas, like you call it in the United States of America, and its effect on the rise of goods and services.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, they are measurable. Things have gone up comparably at different at gas now. You see places 4.3, different places $5. But if you still compare the cost of buying them, I mean, minimum wage, different states about $10. It's not that much of an hassle. You are still going to feed. They always say that nobody goes to bed hungry in England. You're still going to feed. You're still going to be able to afford basic amenities. There's also very keen regulations in all these food sectors and different sectors, so that people don't just wait. And there are alternatives. If you don't want to buy for your car, you can use the train, you can use the bus, you can use different alternatives. Even some companies wage in and provide mass transit buses for their staffs. And they also give some of their staffs some maybe discounts on transportation and some other aspect of daily living. So yeah, prices can fluctuate, but you see, it does not seriously impact how people live. And you see, again, we can say that things can also change in Nigeria, but I will be for a government that is very that is giving us structured progresses. Do you understand? That can actually
but you can see on your screen that we also have our trains here. Show your screen, and I know Dokun Adedeji was laughing. We have our trains. Thanks to our producer and our vision mixer for putting that up. And we have our trains. We've launched the blue line in Lagos, and people are using it. They're enjoying it. And very soon the red line will be coming on board in Lagos. Across the country, the government plans to expand the new rail network that has already been put in place by Buhari. So things are also, we have others as well. But apart from that, the government is deploying. He announced in his speech, Dokun Adedeji, in addition to following up from what Ademola said, the deployment of compressed natural gas buses. Since we're talking about a variety of modes of transportation, as the difference between the cost of living crisis you guys are having there and ours. Well, the president says we are going to deploy compressed natural gas buses for public transportation as a cost-saving measure. So, Ademola Bayonle, what's your thought on this? How do you see this initiative affecting, the transportation sector and helping Nigerians save money as they move around?
I've gotten to a point in Nigerian politics and governance that until I see, I do not believe. And it's just because of the experiences I've had. I don't like people putting my hopes up and dashing it. I think this is a great initiative, but I hope that it is well thought about. We've all agreed that this government and probably the APC government have problem with implementation. So I hope that this is a well thought of plan, and the movement from now we're diversifying our energy sector. We're moving from what's combustible engine to, well, this is still carbon, CNG is still carbon, but we're going a different route. I hope that we're thinking about other renewable energy means. I hope that we're also thinking that this is a sustainable plan. If we're going to gas, are we considering the hazardous part of it? I mean, this is sub-Sahara with high temperature range, and these things are prone to explosion. It is not only the cost, is it sustainable? So yes, if we're saying that we're moving to CNG buses, beautiful. But I hope we're looking 360 at all the angles and all the hinges of how this is not just going to be a 4-year project and we're going to abandon it, move to the next step. That's number one. Number two is that I hope this is also going to cover a lot of states. There are 36 states in Nigeria. If you're talking about the Blue Road, which is just in Lagos, I mean, I'm from Osun State. I have not seen such in Osun State. I don't think it's also...
Well, ask your state governor.
So, well, it's the federal government that removed the subsidy and is the one planning. And well, I know they've given our state like 5 billion ETCs to buy rice and what have you. I hope they're planning intervention projects for the state also, but I hope they are monitoring all these projects. So a little bit concerned about the CNG buses is that I hope that our capitalist-minded people are not going to take over that sector and actually route the government into a non-sustainable way of transportation. Because think about it. Now we have to create hubs where mechanics and everything can start coming to take care of some of these buses. People have to probably start going to school to learn some of these stuff. I hope that we're not just going to be rushing money into a sector that is dead. Hybrid might not be a bad idea. Going fully electric might not be a bad idea. I know there might be concerns about the sizes of batteries and everything to power some of these things, and that's probably where the hybrid comes in. So I think it's great, but I hope that it's well thought of and we don't at December start all over again from where we stopped.
All right. Dr. Adedeji, your thoughts? Sorry, I mixed up both of you earlier, but is the CNG transportation of buses are these the savior, the saving grace, as is being touted,
I like the fact that you said being touted. You see, when you were reading, you said we would deploy. We have not deployed. And I listened to him and he said they're working on it, they're getting some people to get trained who can manage these things. There are stations where they can go and get the compressed gas. Look, honestly, these things are nice. But the implementation and the thought process is what bothers me. Are these harebrained things that, because everybody else is doing it around the world, let's talk about it. How did we begin to think about it? What are the basics, what are the fundamentals of getting these things done? Because there's no point we start. How many buses are going to be deployed, CNG buses are going to be deployed across Nigeria, even across Lagos alone? Not to talk of Abuja, not to talk of the capital. The way we're running in this country, we make the capital cities of states as if that is the state. If you go to Osun State, you see a lot of this in Osogbo, and they worry why people leave interland to come to Osogbo. When you concentrate on the developmental indices, all those parameters of in development, you concentrate them in the state capitals. What are you asking for? You're asking for migration. And then look, can we sustain these things? How much will these things cost us? How much has been earmarked for it? How much has been spent already? How many buses are we getting? From where are you going to get the buses? Are they waiting for Nigeria to make 100 buses for us? They're not going to get the buses in 2 years if you look at the number of buses that are required. So how do we, the stopgap, the gaps in between, how do we cover them? That is what bothers people. It's not because we don't think of it. But my challenge is, most of the time, look at what happened today. The president spoke in the morning, 4 hours after. Did you hear what Gbenga said? He said, Twitter. Chatter.
Yeah.
And then quickly they called the president. Is that how to govern? And even him saying it was careless. How could he have said something like that? That we was Twitter chat and then we quickly thought about it and then we now told the president and said increase to 35. Who does things like that?
I mean, doesn't that show, we'll come to that in a bit, but doesn't that show that the president is responsible? Let me leave that for later. We're still with the president's speech. He talked about the Central Bank of Nigeria. You know, he discussed the reforms, ongoing reforms within the Central Bank of Nigeria, describing it as, quote unquote, a house cleaning. Back to you, Ademola Bayonle. What do you believe will come out of this house cleaning of the Central Bank of Nigeria, as the president put it? Because he says never again will the Central Bank or monetary policy be used for political purposes or political gains. What do you think about that?
Well, whatever is coming back, I think is already out. And if it's not fully out, we can see the faces and the upper limbs already outside, or the shoulders outside already. Because clearly, from between May this year and today, dollar has gone up from probably about 500 or thereabouts to about 750 at the official rate, and about 1,000 at the parallel market. So whatever is coming out, I don't also know, maybe there's another thing that is still coming out. I'm not sure. But you see, it's not about just talking. It's about what we see on ground. It's about the impact. It's about the influence of some of those things. I know he said that we'll have independent reports probably in a couple of weeks or in a couple of months come out from that. But you see, I don't think they are putting the right things in place just from what we can see. And just to buttress what I said initially, I don't think that our politicians think through a lot of their policies. Let me give you an example. In Osun State, for instance, what we have mini buses. So if we have, because of the population of the state. So tell me, if you have a mini bus in the state, you have not even moved to the regular capacity bus. If you move to a CNG bus, how do you intend to adapt such into the state? Now you're going to say that it is not working. How is that going to work? And if governors or whatever wants to do huge projects, they will quickly do bridges when we don't even have traffic, traffic lights. So I just think that a lot of our processes are not well thought about clearly. If we're talking about central bank, clearly on ground today, I still looked at it before I joined the call. I think it's about on the parallel market from where I'm looking at, it's about 995 to $1. And I know May this year, it was just about probably about 700 or thereabout. So whatever is coming out from the door, I hope is out. And if it's not out, I hope it does not consume all of us. So Emefiele is still, I think, is still with the DSS. Nobody still knows clearly what is going on, and
but I mean, yeah. But Bayonle, you sound quite pessimistic, not impressed by this. Are you saying that you were impressed with what the Central Bank of Nigeria turned out to become in the latter days of Emefiele a regime or administration leadership, and you would have wished for things to continue the same? Is that what you're saying?
You see, this is what I'm saying. I feel that we have administrators that do not apply policies properly, and this is why. You see, I ran for office last year, and one of the issues we had was vote buying. So when I heard that we wanted to have a change currency to curb vote buying, I was actually happy about that because I felt that this is going to be a way to actually curb vote buying. Vote buying is consuming us, like seriously. But again, what happened with the implementation? It was just horrible. So I'm very diplomatic when I try to criticize. I think about the thought process. But it seems that everything they say they are going to do really does not end up well.
But was there a need for reforms in the Central Bank of Nigeria? Need for house cleaning?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But you don't sound like you're impressed about that. You don't sound like you think that way.
No, I think that we need reforms. We've had cases that it's just the central bank governors that have audiences with the presidents. Even the deputies don't have those privileges, and we have about 4 or 5 deputies. So whatever they do, whatever they say, does not actually matter in the grand scheme of things. So there should be a shake-up in that sector. But anything they do should translate to a meaningful result, meaning we should be seeing a better exchange rate, meaning we should be strengthening our naira. There should be something we can hold on to. It is not just textbook politics or governance we're talking about. And that's what I'm saying. Whatever fanciness is the policy, if it does not translate to the betterment of life and livelihood of Nigerians, it is bullshit. Sorry for my English.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Over to you, Dr. Adedeji. The reforms and the house cleaning necessary? You think that the government is doing the right thing?
You know, I think, let me start like this. I think the government is turning to Nigerians into cynics, and we're becoming cynical of whatever reforms anybody does. Oh, of course we know that we need reforms, because the way the central bank was working was not the usual, will not be expected to be the way a normal bank, central bank works. At least we read about that in central banks. But let me tell you, Yaradua came in and said, look, I want to reform the electoral process. He set up ways panel. Till date, nothing. Jonathan said, oh, let another committee review that. Nothing. There was something about national conference, nothing. So when you tell me about reform, those are fancy words.
But that wasn't Tinubu.
No, I'm just telling you.
Are we being fair to him?
Look, let me tell you.
He just appointed a special investigator.
No, you see.
And he used his mouth, and these are the early days of his administration, so sorry to interject.
Right.
And he used his mouth to say that the special investigator is doing the job, and they would release the findings very soon. Let's not forget the internal audit of the NDDC. I'm sure you wanted to add that under Buhari that never saw the light of day.
You see, the challenge that I have, I mean, we were talking just a few minutes ago. The president delivered this speech. President delivered this speech at 7. By 11 o'clock, thereabout in the afternoon, the same speech has been altered, not only in one place. And then you tell me about reforms. You tell me about the process, how these things are fashioned out. Then I worry. If, for instance, you're telling us there'll be reform, which we all agree, truly some of this, that's why I like the way you said intent. The intent is good, but you know the road to good, as they say it leads to hell or something.
The road to hell is people with good intentions.
People with good intentions.
But this is early days. It's just about 100 days of the president's administration.
You see,
not even up to a year. The central bank reforms have just kicked in with this special investigator going through the process. Isn't it better for Nigerians, if you agree that this is a necessary measure, to say we hope that they will give us an outcome and wait for them?
Look, the thing is, that's why I said to you, the government has turned us into cynics, pessimists, who don't expect anything to come out. The thing that I'm saying is, of course, Yoruba says something, I can't really speak it. They say the eyes that will, something will not begin to bring out discharge in the morning. The thing is, 100 days, before we know it will be 200 days, and we'll still be groveling. If we don't, you see, I'm talking about signposts to the future. Where are the milestones? What are the things that we begin to look for to say, oh yes, I can believe this, I can believe this. If in 90 days, 100 days, we've seen all kinds of this scholarship policy for children, for students, and then we see fuel subsidy. And do you know that the oil on the global market is about $94, and the subsidy was taken away? So what is happening now that the oil is 94? Are we not surreptitiously in the bags they put on subsidy without announcing that subsidy? Or how are we been maintaining to buy fuel at the same we were buying it?
Well, the president's wife said the husband is not a magician. Maybe, maybe he is. I don't know.
No,
Dr. Adedeji, you are saying the government has given Nigerians PTSD. That's what you're saying.
What do you mean?
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Something like that.
All right.
So because, you know, the way things are, look, honestly, Nigerians want a new lease of life. If we see it, people will embrace it and work with it. But we're seeing a dance in the forest. You want to cost governance, you have about 50 ministers. You want to cut governance, the legislators are collecting prayers in their mailboxes. You want to cost governance, and then you are seeing all kinds of appointments. And then tell me how you want me to believe that they're serious.
Well, who knows? Perhaps those prayers will yield results.
I hope we also get our own prayers.
Not too distant future. All right, let's talk about taxation. And we all know what Bola Tinubu did, as far as and his style, as far as taxation, improving tax collection and fiscal aspect of government as well is concerned. Going by what he did in Lagos, tax reforms and improving tax administration were mentioned in his speech. Back to you, Ademola Bayonle. Elaborate on the importance of wise, effective tax policies for the economic development of a nation, and what specific changes would you recommend in the ongoing tax reforms? They already have a committee on fiscal reforms headed by a gentleman who used to be with PricewaterhouseCoopers. He's the one heading that temporary committee.
Yeah, Mr. Dokun, thank you so much. So this is a very, very important aspect of governance. You need money. You need to be able to generate money to run the economy. I will think that the way they will do the tax reform is in such a way that the informal sector specifically will be covered in the bracket of any tax reform they are trying to look into. Because clearly about 60% of the workforce are in the informal sector. So if we're still doing anything that does not actually capture this set of people, we're wasting our time. And the way I've seen it is that they have actually not even touched the informal sector at all. People can still do their businesses using their regular bank account and not being accountable. And I've, of course, patronize different people. In fact, these days, when you're trying to patronize people, because they want to evade tax, they'll ask you, should I give you my regular bank account or give you my business account? Etc. And also, I also don't think that it is I was speaking to somebody a couple of weeks back, and opening a business account which can be taxed has become so peculiar that it is also not fanciful. It's not easy to get that. Of course, you need taxes you need that account. Now they've streamlined. You need to have your tax clearance for different purposes. People just use it as a figurehead. So, I mean, I don't want to be giving out a lot of tips right here, but
no, feel free. I mean, the spirit of national development as patriotic Nigerian.
Well, but the point is that I hope they have such an encompassing policies, especially that will capture people in the informal sector, because they're almost like 60%. If we count the federal government, state government, and local government workers all together, they're probably about 25% of our workforce, and people in the private sectors probably another 15%. All the rest are all like SMEs and.
Ademola, can you hear me? Or we seem to have a bit of a network law over there. We'll get back to him, definitely. But Dr. Adedeji, Ademola was being a politician, saying he doesn't want to give the government any tips. But, what's your take on the reforms? The gentleman whose name I was trying to remember, who has been drafted for the fiscal reforms, the taxation reforms and all that is, I think it's Taiwo. Oyedele, who
yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, PWC. So what, do you think is important to have tax reform, improve the tax administration, and what specific changes would you like to see?
I think Dr. Bayonle started on it. No, absolutely, this is also important. You continue to see that we're having the right buzzwords: tax reform, central bank reform, something reform. Yeah, it is, but it is the doing of it that is important. As I said, 60 to 70 people are in the informal sector. How do we tax them? Even if you notice, the people that bear the brunt of taxation in Nigeria, the people who work and then the company pay directly. They have no choice. And then you can begin to look at that. The other thing is, most of these are big companies declaring billions and millions. How much do they pay? Those are the things we need to begin to look at. How many? Look, I heard from a friend of mine whose company was taxed so much million. He called the governor, I don't also want to mention, And then the governor called whoever was in charge, they beat it from 50 million to like 5 million, 10 million. And so what do you expect? And I always ask, it's not that one is pessimistic or one does not like what is happening. But some of these big Nigerians with fancy companies, and how much do they pay for tax?
Was that at a federal level?
It was
Federal
state
tax?
level. It was one state. It was one state. I don't want to be specific about it.
Okay.
But these are the things that happen because it depends on who you know. And then somebody is called and then they say, why don't you reduce this? And look at the companies that even pay, they bear so much burden. There's education tax, there's this one tax. And you know the thing that bothers people like me, we've been collecting education tax for how many years? How much has it pooled? What has it been spent on? And all these other taxes that you make other companies pay, this corporate, where is the money going? Into which pool? What name is it given? And into what has they been deployed? If people don't see that, people will find they need to sidetrack. So we must block all the loopholes. We must block all the gaps that people can walk into and then get out of. I'm sure there are a lot of people in this country that don't pay. But for instance, what Lagos State has done is, yeah, you may run away from paying tax, but when you want to build, you have to pay all the things that you have missed or something. So they have ways of getting them. That's why Lagos State is lucky.
But it could be said that Tinubu began and started that tax reform culture in Lagos State. And that's what he's going to translate to the federal tax system.
I wish he can. Honestly, I wish he can.
Right.
But I also want to remind you, Lagos State is not Nigeria. We need to remember that anytime we are saying, oh, he did this in Lagos, he did this magic, I quite understand.
Is it possible to reform the tax to what you want to see in Nigeria? Is it possible?
If it's possible, because depending on this guy that you mentioned, Oyedele, if the guy sits down and they allow him perform and he can do it. It's not, these things are not important, they're not rocket science.
Okay, let's go over to look at the details of what emerged from the meeting between organized labor and the federal government. And I know if I say this one, you guys will say, aha. Because the initial statement put out by the Ministry of Information said they had resolutions and talked about some, and then they put out another tweet now removing the word resolutions and said this was what the federal government put forward, changing the wording. However, let's look at the specifics now. We can look at, for instance, the waiver on VAT for diesel, which has been announced to take place or hold for the next 6 months. To you, Ademola Bayonle, how will this tax relief, a VAT waiver for 6 months, how will it bring a benefit or affect the Nigerian workers and the masses? Is this something that you think maybe will be to the benefit of businesses more than the Nigerian worker? What economic implications also might this VAT waiver have?
Well, we've started seeing the impact of that. We've seen that the Manufacturing Association have decided not to join the strike, as they have. It seems that might be favoring them on that side, giving them waiver on diesel. But you see, yeah, it's something. I would say. I mean, if NLC and TUC are saying that they agree to that, I also think that it's something. It might not. It's a multi-pronged and multi-hydra kind of issue. So if you take that out, there's a lot of companies that run on diesel. There's a lot of infrastructures that need diesel to move on. And that is why I said it is important. You see, we cannot keep having quick fixes for problems. If we're doing an energy migration, we're diversifying our energy sector. We should be thinking about 2040 and saying that this CNG, for instance, that we're bringing in place, we're going to be able to use our gas to also power different factories and
the government has a plan to ensure that Nigeria has a certain amount of electricity, megawatts in the tens of thousands by the year 2050 something. That was announced last week by the Minister of Power. And then they have a short-term plan to increase local power production or generation capacity and then the generation itself. So they have those plans in place, since the deal is to provide electricity, you know.
Well, I hope that plan materializes, and I can imagine why Dr. Adedeji also smiled and
He laughed.
in the studio because it's always planned. And yes, we're given 6 months, like I said. I hope they've been able to sit down to see how that will calibrate and move on after 6 months without a need for an extension. I salute that initiative. I think it's great. I mean, giving a waiver to help something. But you see, just one thing, which is fuel subsidy, has just gone everywhere to hit everywhere. And that is what I always tell people, like, especially when I meet people in government, that's when you want to take a decision, think it through and through. You cannot just single-handedly do something and start rolling with the punches. Should we have done this in May? Why is it coming now? And why is it for 6 months? Are we sure after 6 months, this policy will, I mean, people will have reached a level where they can actually enjoy the benefit of the subsidy? But yes, I mean, I think if we're seeing wage increment support for SMEs as part of what they have negotiated and the CNG vehicles, what have you. But yes, I mean, it's something. Like people will say, it's something. So, but I just hope that after 6 months, we don't go back to status quo.
Very, very quickly, I want to ask Dr. Dokun Adedeji. During the meeting between the federal government and labor representatives, there was a call for, a higher wage award, like we just said, 25,000 naira, and Femi Wajaveola said, Ashewaju, they said they want 10,000 naira more. He said, okay, we'll give it to them, 35,000 naira. And the president immediately agreed to that via phone to increase the wage top-up from 25,000 to 30,000 naira. Now, government also agreed now to include not just low-income earners, but also workers on the federal wage bill at different, salary levels, not just low-income earners. So my question to you is this a win for workers in Nigeria? How this work? Because you're looking at how the fact that those at the lower level get 35,000 naira, those at the higher level also get the same 35,000 naira. How do you think this is going to work?
Honestly, I'm at sea as to how this is going to work. You see, because my worry is this: how did this proposal emerge? And something necessitated the change. So how are we going to address this? Is there any money budgeted for this, or there'll be a supplementary budget to support this? You see, the thing that I'm worried about is that it looks as something happens, we take a reaction, we do something. What is the thought process behind all these things? For me, when you say, is it a win for workers? I hope the workers themselves begin to rethink their process of asking for strike. Strike does not do anything. I think what we should do is, how do we make all this thing generally acceptable to people that they can live a better life, not based on salary?
Okay, we'll see what happens, especially for those in the employ of state governments, local governments, and the private sector.
What's going to happen?
Yeah, private sector. We're also going to be included in that. I'm looking for those in the private sector. Thank you very much, Dr. Dokun Adedeji, political analyst here with us in the studio, our Lagos studios, and also Dr. Ademola Bayonle, who is all the way in the Boston, Massachusetts, also having to pay more for petrol and for his daily items for life. Thank you for your time as well.
Thank you.
All right, it's the
Thank
Politics HQ. We'll be right back after this break to give you something to chew on. That's the size of our package. We'll return tomorrow with more on Politics HQ. My name is Kofi Bartels. Thank you very much for being our guest.